What the what? Anybody ever had that moment? Any time frame during the process of trying to acquire your next nurse practitioner job, whether it's from reading the job description to signing on the dotted line, some little thing happens. Somebody says something, there's a sentence in that contract, in that dream job that just seems too good to be true that you go, wait a second here. Is this really legit or not? We've all had those moments because there are a lot of shady jobs out there. And I do a lot of talking on this channel about how to acquire your next dream job and how to make yourself the best candidate possible. But let's be real here, friends. This needs to be a good fit for you and for them. You need to be happy there. You are a catch. So this is the video where I talk about how you discern during that whole process of acquiring your next job whether or not something is a legitimate concern or just some weird vibes. In this video, we're going to be talking about money, we're going to be talking about people, we're going to be talking about the terms of the job, things that are in the contract that are concerning. I'm going to tell you the top 3 things that I feel like during an interview that could happen that should probably raise your level of awareness, and the top 3 questions I suggest you ask anytime during that process of the future employer to help you tease out whether or not this is truly a major red flag and you should move on, or whether or not it's something very minor. So stick around to the end where we get to that part. If we haven't met yet, my name is Bree. I'm an RN NP mentor, interview strategist, content creator, and educator. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Okay, first I want to talk about money. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because I think there are a lot of variables at play, and it is a highly, highly personal decision to make. Now, what is going to be a red flag for me in regards to base salary is going to be very different for you, which may be specific to the region you live in, how much experience you have, the specialty, all of these things. Somewhere in here, I'm going to include a link to a video I made talking about the salary expectations for nurse practitioners across the country. And in that, I go through all the different variables that make this such a huge range in what is acceptable depending on where you live and what your values are. I think there are about 2 general statements I will make in regards to salary, and that is, number 1, if the pay that they're offering you is significantly less than market value in your area, that might be something you pass on. And the second thing is, if you're going to be taking a significant pay cut, say you're going from RN to NP role, or you've been an NP and you're switching specialties, something like that, anything that's going to involve a big pay cut for you and the work-life balance, like benefits that you may get from this job, do not offset the pay cut that you're taking, that also might be something that you're like, I don't know about this. Why are you paying so poorly? Move on. If there are no or very, very poor benefits and the salary is an increase to like offset that, you know, say that there is no malpractice coverage included. Friends, malpractice expense is huge. It can be several $1,000s per year to maintain, you know, nurse practitioner malpractice, depending on what it is that you're doing. So you really want your employer to pay that. And most that I'm aware of do offer that. So if they don't, that might be something that makes me go, why? If there are no or really poor benefits offered and the salary is not increased efficiently to offset that, then that is also a red flag. It seems like somebody who has budget issues, or they've been able to hire people who are not willing to like command more money for the market value. And this may look like run-of-the-mill stuff like no PTO coverage, no overtime, no extra pay for holidays or weekends, no CME fund, or it may look like hidden fees, like hidden money fees that most organizations will cover when they hire you, like your license, like your DEA, like your malpractice insurance. Friends, these are incredibly expensive. I think at this point in time, the going rate on a DEA license is almost $900 a year. Malpractice coverage can be $3,000 a year. There's a lot of different terms involved with that, whether or not you have a tail and all the coverage kind of stuff that goes along with it, but thousands of dollars. And this is not something we are expected to pay as a W-2 employee NP. Now, if you're working as a 1099 contractor, that's a whole different ball of wax. But as a W-2 standard full-time, part-time employee, these things should be covered. The other thing I'm going to talk about in regards to pay is if there is a huge sign-on bonus. Okay, if you're reading these job descriptions and they say something that's sort of like an outlier, something that makes you stop scrolling and you go, what? That is a lot of money. Something that really sticks out, okay? This is a flag, maybe a red flag. But when they are offering a whole bunch of money just to get you in the door, This says two things to me. Number one, they're desperate and they need someone quickly, which makes me worry about how long they're going to take to onboard me and how much they're going to be willing to patiently wait on me to start this job and become proficient at this job. It also is a way of kind of like shortchanging me. Don't forget that a sign-on bonus is taxed at a very, very high rate. So they may be offering you some astronomical number like $15,000, $20,000 sign-on bonus, but you're only going to make about half of that, and then it's not going to happen on a recurring basis. Now, sometimes in the contracts or the terms of the negotiation, employers will offer renewing sign-on bonuses, or call them retention bonuses. So you got to kind of look into the fine print of what is involved in it. But remember, that's going to end at some point in time. So you can't count on that as a part of your salary. It also makes me think, because they're offering this, they value retention less than they do just bringing someone in the door. Because why wouldn't you just increase the salary more? Okay, so we're going to move on to talking about the job itself. And these are components of the job, maybe the day-to-day work life, that make it just miserable and not worth whatever salary it is that you are bringing home. First subcategory is going to be work-life balance, which is huge, friends. Don't mess with people's schedules. Don't mess with people's off time. They like that a whole lot. You're going to want to compare your workload to the difficulty of the job to the amount of reimbursement, because there are some jobs that may offer like a lower salary, but you got to put in a lot less hours of work. So it may actually be a really good trade-off. Start by looking at what the average census is for your specialty, and it's going to vary. Okay, I work in critical care. Average is anywhere from like, I don't know, depending on the season, it can be anywhere from like 8 to 12 or 14. That's on a very, very bad day. And it also can flux throughout the day. And honestly, in critical care, it only takes one sick patient to take up your entire day. So the workload and the stress level is going to vary from day to day. As opposed to like your hospitalist, who is going to be expected to see probably 20 patients a day, as opposed to like your in-house specialist, who they just get their census each day, they see their patients, and when they're done, they go home. And that's going to vary as well. It's also going to depend on where you work, how busy the demand is where you work, and then you have your outpatient practices, which are sort of a whole different ball of wax if you're working in clinic. I hear from my friends who work in outpatient settings that primary care is also very different than like specialty care. I've been told that in specialty clinics, you generally get a little bit more time per patient. And so it may make for a better ability to get your work done in a timely manner and not be staying late at the end of the day. So you're just going to have to look at what specialty it is that you're looking to go into as far as how much is too much. I hear for primary care, the standard is anywhere around 20. Some people really will offer dream jobs where they get less than that, some more than that. And it also depends on your experience level. How new are you? How fast are you? A lot of variables there. But you want to look at what is industry standard for you. The second factor in work-life balance is, do they offer admin time? And this really applies to outpatient settings. This is key. This is key for all of my friends who are going to work in a clinic. You want them to pay you as many admin hours as humanly possible. And what this means is, this is time that you are paid that is not spent face-to-face in direct care with a patient. And it can be anything that's involved. It can be finishing your notes. It can be looking up labs, responding to phone calls from patients. But if you have dedicated time for this, it allows you to spend less time doing work outside of paid work hours. This is what I hear from a lot of people who work in clinic. Big factor in happiness where they work is how much time they're having to spend after they see their patients doing all of this stuff, and is it keeping them from getting home on time? The other great thing about admin time that I love, if you are a new NP, and especially if you're in clinic work, the orientation process is very different. It's very accelerated. You may not get a lot of one-on-one time with a preceptor, and if you have dedicated admin time, especially in the beginning, you can even negotiate it so you have more admin time while you're on orientation. You can set up dedicated paid time where you can do one-on-ones with either a physician or a nurse practitioner, and you can run through cases. Here's what I did on this one. What do you think I should have done? And it helps you to more quickly become proficient in your craft. The other thing I hear from outpatient friends is the amount of support staff in the office. So if you are going to work for a very small practice, possibly a 1099 contractor, or you are working for someone that's private practice, and if they're a busy group and there's not a lot of support staff that are hired there to do all of those kind of administrative duties, you may find yourself having to do that. Answer the phone, call the patients yourself. You may be having to do your own vitals, check your patient in. All of that stuff takes time away from you doing the act of being a nurse practitioner, of actually making a diagnosis, prescribing medications, writing notes. So all of that just adds on to the tasks that you have to do each day. The second factor in job satisfaction is the reward that you get from it. If this is a job where you are not going to have a lot of autonomy, you are ultimately probably not going to be very happy. Now, I like to pause in every video for dramatic effect, so this would be the moment in this video. I remember my mentor when I was in school telling me this. She told the whole class this. I didn't believe her. I said, oh no, I don't want any autonomy. I want to be able to go to work, and I want someone to be there with me. I'm scared to freaking death. I want someone there with me at all hours of the day to walk me through this. And I remember her saying, you feel that way now, I promise you won't feel that way once you get down to practice and you've been doing it for a little while. You're going to want the ability to practice independently. You're going to want the ability to use your training to be a nurse practitioner. So those things I was just telling you about, like office work, if you're having to do like what I call non-NP tasks, all the administrative type of duties with that as well, it takes away from the time that you get to actually be an NP. So if you're going to work for a team where they want to utilize you more as an MA, more as a nurse, more as a scribe, ultimately you will, mark my words, you will at some point in time find yourself very dissatisfied, because you went to school to learn how to take histories, how to diagnose, how to tease things out, how to make a plan of care, prescribe medications, and help turn people's lives around. And so you may not find as much reward if you go to work for a job where you are following a physician around all day, putting in orders and writing a note. So just something to consider, how much autonomy are they going to be willing to offer you? And you find this out by asking them these questions throughout the process of either interviewing or talking to people afterwards. What is the collaboration like here at this team? How do physicians utilize NPs in a work life? Like, tell me about an average day for you when you come to work. How do you discuss, how often do you check in with your doctor? Does your doctor have to follow up with your patients afterwards? How involved are you in the care of this patient? The last part about job satisfaction is going to be support. How much support do you have? I kind of like crossed over topics, didn't I? So in clinic setting, talking about support from your admin staff, who's involved there. But beyond that, what support is going to be offered to you as far as your orientation? How long is your orientation going to be? Does it seem like a long enough time frame? Are there good processes in place so that if you're going along in your orientation and you don't feel like you're ready or you have concerns, that you have an opportunity to extend your orientation time frame and or change the approach in how you are doing your onboarding? Is there a ramp up period where you will be, one-on-one with somebody who's training you, and then you will slowly develop your own caseload? Or is it you get off at month 3 and you immediately have your own full census? And who's giving you feedback along the way? So one of my favorite questions to ask about this is going to be, can you describe the orientation process to me? Is there a process in which I will be ramped up, how many patients I will be able to see? And who's the person doing my evaluations? When will I be evaluated? And how will feedback be given? I have also heard people say that they were offered less, like a prorated amount of money, that they were only going to be paid during the orientation process, and that it would then slowly ramp up as their patient census increased. That for me is a red flag, because what that tells me is they value money over everything else, and they're not willing to pay you the extra amount, knowing you're going to slow them down and not be as big of a producer in the beginning. But that's what matters more to them. That is, to me, is a little bit concerning. But I have heard about this kind of setup being a normal thing for a lot of places. But I have heard about this kind of thing being normal for some places. For me, this would be a red flag. Last thing about support in the form of training. What do they offer in regards to CME? How much money do you have to complete your CMEs? Do they offer like local, regional trainings? How much are they directly involved in your training? Are they doing lectures for you periodically? All of this stuff will tell you that they value turning you into a strong, educated expert in your field and a good producer for the team. They value you and your training. Next red flag section is going to be people, the people involved. This is my favorite part because I'm a people person. So to me, when you go to work for someone, even if the money's good, the work-life balance is good, but you're working with some really not fun people to be around, this is a problem for me. But this is higher on my value list than it is for other people. So you got to determine what matters most to you. By people, I'm talking about everyone involved, from the hiring process to your direct report, your boss, your administrative director, your medical director, your teammates, possibly the people involved early on in the process, like your recruiters, although you're only going to have limited interaction with your recruiters. I hear people telling me sometimes about things that they think are red flags that they're hearing from HR or from recruiters, but the thing about it is they're really only involved with you in the attainment phase. So after that, they're not going to be heavily involved in your day-to-day work life. So take it with a grain of salt in regards to that. First, they never respond. It's a red flag. I know they're busy, but your time is just as valuable as their time. And if you're having to constantly pester them, you're sending tons of emails, you're calling them, they never return calls, they never return any of the correspondence, this makes me think they don't value me. My time is valuable and I need some feedback here. This is concerning to me. Conversely, if they pressure you very heavily to make a decision super fast and don't give you a lot of time to think on it, why? Why? Why are you so quick to trap me here, sir? If at any point in time somebody is talking bad about others, particularly their coworkers, this is a major red flag for me. If they decline a request for a shadow day, major red flag, friends, major. Why? What is it that they have to hide? They need to offer a shadow day for you. And I don't know many people at all who would say no to that request. In fact, as a person looking for someone to come work for my team, what that tells me is that you are seriously considering this and you really want to make sure that this is a good fit for both of us. Something I get asked a lot by clients that I talk to is, should I negotiate? I say absolutely 100% of the time the answer is always going to be yes. Even if it said no negotiation, I would still ask. And people get very, very nervous. And they say, what if they take away the offer? What if they rescind it? Well, here's my words to you. If you ask someone, I'm not saying pester them, you ask them one time, I would like 20% more in a CME fund. And they immediately say, no, thank you, never mind, we're moving on to the next candidate. That's cool. That's cool. Consider yourself having dodged a bullet. Because if they are that knee-jerk in being angry or irritated because you asked nicely one time for something, how are they going to behave when you are an employee of them? Now this last one, I might cut it from the video. I don't know, maybe it'll stay. Feeling cute, might delete later. But I have heard it enough, it has come up enough that I do feel like I should probably bring it up. And this is incredibly stereotypical, so take it for what it is. But I've heard people say when they go to work for private practices or small groups and there is a spouse that is doing all the hiring, heavily involved in being your manager, director, boss, that it can create friction. And I'll just leave it there. It might be something that you really want to drill down on some more questioning in regards to what the relationship will be like. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so now let's talk about the terms of the contract that might be concerning to you. The first red flag for me that comes up is a very, very long time frame to renegotiation. So if you sign a contract that is 3-5 years or more, that's a little bit concerning because what that means is you're signing the dotted line saying, I agree to these terms and this reimbursement for this number of years. Inflation happens. All kinds of things happen in the world in which you may need to or desire to get paid more, or you may get into a job and find you're doing a whole lot more work than you thought it was going to be, and you really can command more salary. Well, now you're stuck for the next 3 to 5 years. So you really don't want it to be very long. If you have to offer them a very long time frame for putting in your notice, to me, anything over around 3 months, that seems to be standard, about 90 days. And that sounds long, particularly if you've been working as a nurse, but that is standard in the nurse practitioner provider role. A non-compete, if you have a non-compete, what that says is you can't perform the same specialty practice that you do anywhere else within your region. And usually there's a geographic ring that you will be enclosed in, and the smaller it is, obviously depending on geographic variations, right? Some places it's going to be bigger if it's a more widespread community. For compact cities it's going to be much smaller. But the bottom line is they're kind of trying to trap you. They don't want you to go moonlight somewhere else. They don't want you to quit and go work for someone else. And there may be a time frame in which the non-compete says, okay, if you put in your 90 days and you leave, you then cannot work anywhere within this geographic distance for a year, 3 years, 5, some astronomical numbers. Adding on to this is going to be like a repayment of a bonus, whether it's a sign-on bonus, RVU bonus, any kind of bonus that they offer you, or possibly even a loan repayment. If you leave within a certain time frame, you have to repay all this money. All of these factors, all of the stuff I just told you about, all of this makes me concerned that they're like trying to trap you. So this tells me that they've had high attrition rates, they've had a lot of loss, maybe high turnover. It takes a long time and a lot of money to bring in a new NP, train them, and get them up to producing level. They want to limit this as much as possible. But if it's a decent place to work, they shouldn't have to. They should value retention. They should be a good place to work, and therefore that's not a big problem for them. But if all of these factors are in place, it makes you think it is a problem for them. Okay, let's move on to the fun part, the top threes. The first one is going to be the main 3 red flags that are raised for me in an interview. Number 1, the people doing your interview are non-medical people. Like, there are no medical people in any part of the hiring process, whether it's a phone interview, a formal interview, the whole thing, kit and caboodle. There's very limited involvement with the medical professionals, the people that are going to be your direct medical director, your direct teammates. If you haven't met those people, this is concerning to me. You really need a little bit of face-to-face time to get a feel for people's personalities. And if those people are not involved in the interview or hiring process, what that makes me think is they're either too busy, they don't care, or they've outsourced this to like an administrative person who maybe is not going to be able to answer all of your medical related questions. This is concerning to me. The second part about an interview that's going to be bad is going to be constant interruptions. So the people who are doing your formal interview, where you've taken time out of your day, it could be an hour, it could be half a day, but you've taken time out of your day to meet with various groups of people to find out if y'all are a good fit for each other, and they don't value it enough to silence the phone for a little while. Now, I get it. I work in a high stakes environment in the hospital, so it is a little bit difficult. We sometimes have to be available at all times for emergencies, but I'm talking about incessant, constant interruptions. They're on their phone, scrolling, texting. They're completely distracted the whole time. It makes me think they're either very busy or they don't care. And if they're like that in the formal interview, what's it going to be like when you go to work with them? Lastly, illegal questions. If they ask you anything that they are legally not allowed to ask, and you will get a weird vibe from them when they ask this, because you'll be like, that's really kind of invasive and that's too personal for you to ask me. Things like, are you married? How many children do you have? Do you plan on getting pregnant? All of those kind of things, they are legally not allowed in an interview. And if they're asking you that, it makes you think that they are going to discriminate against you because you have commitments outside of work. That's a big red flag. Okay, drum roll. The top 3 questions I believe you should ask people when you are concerned. Number 1, always, 100% of the time, always ask for a shadow day. I would ask for a shadow day after you've completed the formal interview. And you can either ask them in person, you can send them an email later, but I always advocate for asking for a shadow day, because what that does is it offers more time for you to get to know them and more time for them to get to know you. It's a win-win for both of you, but really and truly what you're able to do is you're able to see them in action. You're able to see the interplay between them as teammates. You're able to see the workload and how crazy it is. Maybe it's a job that's paying a ton of money, but they run their butts off and it's not something you want to do. You really get to see them in action, and it also gives you like a much longer time frame to ask those nitty-gritty questions that are important but that you don't have time to do in the formal interview, like how many holidays are you required to work? Is overtime required? Do I have administrative time, or how do you get all your charts done? Do you take work home with you at the end of the day? All of those little like work practice stuff that really end up being major deals once you get out there and work for them. Number 2, and this is probably one of my favorites, why is there a vacancy? Or you could rephrase that like, can you tell me a little bit about your attrition rates? What is the average length of employment for an NP here? Most people aren't expecting that question. Most people can't come up on the fly with false information. I mean, they could, but it's not typical. usually they're going to answer pretty honestly. And you may get some information from this to help you tease out maybe there was a legitimate reason why they lost, 5 APPs last month. Maybe they've had such high turnover and they've had a very difficult time retaining staff. And again, you should go back to that. Is this really a good place to work? And lastly, what do you love about this job? Or what do you love about this team? This is a good question, I think, to end on because it's sort of a positive note. It's asking a positive thing. And most people, again, can't come up with a false narrative on the fly. So if they're struggling to come up with a reason why they like it, okay, ask for a shadow day for sure and see what it's like in real life. But most of the time, people are going to be able to tell you what the positives are about the job. So I really, really like this one. It ends on a good note. You've caught them off guard, and so they're going to be able to probably give you very honest feedback. If you want more content like this, go to my website, brienp.com, sign up for emails, and in your email box, you will find instantly drafted a PDF for you that has a list of 52 questions to ask the interviewer from the good for you side and the good for me side to help determine if y'all are a good fit for each other. And don't forget, even if you're a new grad, you are a catch.